Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different because I had Jake from A Many Tale reach out to me and just tell me a little bit about this thing, which I'm about to talk about here in a moment, and ask if I would read it and potentially do a video about it. And so it took me a bit in order to get to it, but I finally checked it out. And it definitely was something that was very interesting and not quite what I expected, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. I know some other people have done videos on this in the past as well, and so some of you may have already heard of this. I actually remember seeing a while back, I'm pretty sure it was Leslie from the Nerd Narrative, her video about this, and I had kind of like peeked at it before, but I hadn't actually read it. So when Jake reached out to me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to finally check it out, because I had already heard about it. And so Many Tale is like a serialized adventure. Actually, I wanted to say fantasy adventure, but it has some fantasy elements in what I read. It has some like sci-fi elements, and it has just kind of all kinds of other stuff. And so the base kind of premise of what it is there is a mouseling who's like a meter tall, like bipedal human-like mouse, basically, named Opaline, and along with a small, like, dragon, butterfly-sized dragon, who is Peridot, and who is apparently a god, is cursed to just blip between worlds after just some random amount of time, basically. Will just appear in another world and not know how long he actually has in any given world. And so the first story, and there's lots of episodes that are out at this point. I read the first 3, and then I kind of like took a quick look at the 4th one just out of curiosity for it. So there's way more there, and I'm not going to talk like super in-depth about it in general. But the story starts, at least with the first episode, just after Opaline had been on the same world for 55 years. And so at that world had like, made friends and like experienced and, thought like, oh, this seems permanent. And then all of a sudden blips to a new world and it's all done. There's no way to go back. So it starts out pretty good and on like actually like hits on a really good emotional level very quickly. The first episode is just kind of introducing the idea of what's going to be going on. And then we from there start to, the first 3 episodes all kind of show some of what this has to offer. So the first episode had me very interested, and this is written. They're like short stories, I should say. I keep seeing episode because they're very episodic with how it's happening. There's some that are like arcs, and there's some that I think are just supposed to be one-offs from what I was doing when I was reading it. And what they do too with each new episode, there's like a different artist, or sometimes the person who's writing it does the art for it, but they feature a lot of different artists doing their different takes on the story or on that individual story, which I think is really interesting also. But so we start out, I was pretty pulled in right away from the first episode. The second one then was a little bit strange. I didn't like it as much as the first. It was introducing another character who apparently also does like blipping as well, and is another one of these individuals, but it was very different. And I think also just showing the fact that this is not going to necessarily be just fantasy or just sci-fi or just this or just that. Really showing the fact that it's going to have a lot of different elements to it. The third one went back to another kind of odd world, but did, once again, like, was really well written and hit some emotional points really well. And so I really enjoyed the third episode, which is why I peeked forward to a little bit at the 4th. The 4th one seems like it's going to go back to just being kind of crazy and odd and a little more sci-fi. And then from reading up to, it sounds like there's like an arc from I think like 4 to 7, and then after that there's some that are like horror themed and a bunch of different ones. So it really just sounds like you never know what you're going to get, and it's a really wide variety of styles or types of worlds, and all of them is the mouseling Opaline trying basically to go through and to figure out what he's going to do on these worlds. So it's definitely something I'm interested in. I will certainly be reading some more to find out. It seems like some might be a little bit hit or miss, but But the first and the third of the serialized little shorts, I really, really liked both of those. And so I'm excited to see more. Like I said, 4 seemed kind of off the rails. And I think that's kind of the point, though. I did a lot of reading on the website just kind of about it, the inspirations, and it is supposed to be a little bit odd, strange, serialized adventures going on. And so I'm really interested to see where this ends up going. The other thing I'll mention is that it does, apparently, it's kind of like the stories are in a way based on like a solo D&D adventure is what it says. And so Opaline does have some like D&D-esque items and also has some magical abilities that I don't know a lot about D&D, surprisingly. So I don't know if they're like specific spells or things from there, but seems to have some other abilities. And so it seems like there's a lot to unpack with how all of this happened. There have already been a couple of very small hints as to the backstory, and I'm guessing at some point more backstory will be included. But this starts after this has been going on for a really, really long time with the blipping, and so it's kind of moving forward. And it just kind of had those like heroic fantasy moments for the main character, Opaline. And that's really what pulled me in. Like I said, I wonder how I'm going to feel about some of the other ones that are very much not fantasy. But I was very, very quickly, my interest was piqued very, very quickly from the first episode. So I definitely recommend checking it out, because the other thing I probably should have mentioned, like at the very beginning, these are all available on the website for free. It's not like something you have to buy. It's just a serialized, web story, basically, going on there. So I will absolutely have the link to A Many Tale in the description, because I definitely recommend checking it out. It really doesn't take that long. That's kind of how I was sold too. I looked at it before, like I said, after seeing a previous video, and then I'd kind of forgotten about it. And then Jake reached out to me and just said, hey, if you want to check this out, it will not take long to read the first couple of episodes. I read the first one, and immediately I'm like, I'm going to read the second one right now. And then immediately I'm like, that was weird, but I'm going to read the third one. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty sold on this. So it doesn't take a whole lot of time to go through, and I could definitely see myself just going and binging like the next 30 episodes or so in a day at some point. I've definitely spent that amount of time on other websites just randomly reading stuff, so it would not be totally surprising if I end up reading more. But I read the first 3, and like I said, I was pretty sold. I thought this was pretty cool. I also wanted to make a video and just kind of shout it out and talk about it. So Jake, thanks for reaching out to me on A Many Tale, because as soon as I went out there, I'm like, this seems so familiar. And I realized later that was why I'd seen a video talking about it before, and so it was definitely fun to try. So like I said, if anything I've talked about sounds even remotely interested to you, try it out. The first episode kind of really, I feel like, puts that hook in, and then the first 3 do a good job and are designed to kind of introduce the reader to what's going to be happening from there. So I definitely recommend checking it out. I thought it was pretty cool. And just, it seems like a lot of interesting things are going to happen, so I'll be reading more. So check if you are interested. Make sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description for both the link to this website and, of course, also the Wizardly Duo Discord. If you want to chat about this, books, anything really, it's a lot of fun. We would love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.